everyone. How are we doing this week? There will be a story to the painting that I'm painting, but I'm going to ramble a little bit and just let you know what's going on. As always, check the timestamps below and you can skip ahead to the story bit. I keep finding fruit snacks all over my house. I don't buy fruit snacks. We do occasionally get them in like little goodie bags from like the great aunts and uncles to the kids. I don't really know how they keep ending up all over the house. I have just found 4 bags of fruit snacks. One was just sitting on my desk. I sit at my desk every day. I don't know where it came from. Uh, anyway, moving on. So, with this painting, I'm actually really excited about it. It's a little bit more detail in like an overall character painting than any of the other ones that I've done. Like I have mentioned before, I am kind of trying to work out the style that I want to use in some like larger paintings and stories that I have to tell. And I think this one hits pretty close. I'm pretty happy with it. I really enjoyed painting it, and I'm looking forward to the sister painting for it. I don't know. I've had so much fun getting to paint every single day. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm just enjoying doing it. So, this painting has a story, like most of my other paintings. I don't know how much detail I'm going to get into it because it does kind of play into like a larger story that I'm putting in together. Maybe something that's more like a comic panel situation or more in-depth illustrations rather than just a portrait or like a picture of a background. I'm just going to get into a little bit of what I think is going on with this character. I'm still working through some details, and as always, I'm open to thoughts and opinions. Oh, just a quick aside. I was up early this morning, so I was like, "Oh man, I'm going to get some recording in. I'll be able to tell the story and it'll be totally silent in my house." Not true. I'll play a short clip here. I don't know what was going on. There was some sort of machine that made it sound like my air conditioning was on or a fan was blowing directly at my microphone. That is not what was happening. There's also just constant bird song and then a horse whinnying. So I did not record early this morning. I'm recording now, which is not early, but it's quieter now. I don't know. Here's the short clip just so you know what I'm talking about. That's pretty nuts, right? It is so random. Anyway, here's actually the story behind this painting. So this fairy princess situation going on here. My thought is that she's the product of maybe like a high fae king of some sort or lord of some sort, and maybe like an arranged marriage with an uncommonly pretty goblin who is also fae. And it's not that they look particularly weird, they're just not quite as beautiful as the high fae tend to be. So her mother's like uncommonly beautiful for her, I don't know, species, race. I'm not sure the differences. I haven't decided that part yet. While she is a beautiful fairy princess, she's not quite as beautiful as her mother or father had hoped or anticipated. And Faye being very, very vain, that's kind of a big deal. So in my mind, she's kind of trying to make up for it with charisma and also perhaps magical ability. Maybe she's trying to make up for the fact that she's not the drop dead gorgeous fairy princess that everyone had hoped. Also, her being, maybe half goblin, even if her mother happens to be this just outrageous beauty, that did not get passed to her. So she is considered, the half breed, not necessarily legitimate. I think that in our magic system, we're going to continue with the idea that the fae or fairies have trouble like breeding, like they're unable to have children as easily as maybe humans or other types of creatures do. When they have a child, it's a really big deal and there's a lot of expectation. I'm wondering if maybe because her parents are of mixed breed's not the right word. Maybe because her parents are not the exact same strain of fairy. I don't know how to word that. There's some question as to whether or not she is even fertile or is able to have an heir or another child. So they have been unable to secure any kind of marriage for her. Not that there's a rush because fae are immortal in my series. Most of them are, not all of them. I like the idea that maybe she's really into the sciences, which maybe is uncommon for magical people because they have magic, so they're less focused on, the science behind how things work, and alchemy, maybe things that humans are more focused on because magic is not an inherent skill for most humans. So maybe in an attempt to, I don't know, prove her worth, or, prove that she is capable and useful, and even if she is unable to have children, she gets really focused on helping her people, maybe helping them have children. Maybe that's her goal. Maybe she starts to experiment with essentially fertility treatments for fairies, and she tries to figure out how to help them bear children, essentially. I would assume that there are a lot of attempts on any fairy's part, magical or otherwise, to figure out how to breed faster, including maybe at one point breeding with humans, and that just didn't work out. Maybe our princess here, I'm calling her princess because she doesn't have a name yet, but maybe princess here was part of another experiment, is maybe fairies usually kind of stuck to their own. There's a lot of jealousy, there's a lot of mistrust, even within their own types of fae, because of the nature of what a fae is, I guess. And maybe the union of her parents was part of an attempt to see if that would lead to potentially more children. Maybe over time, there are fewer and fewer fae, right? And it's not just that there are fewer being born. Maybe overall, their, mastery of magic has become less masterful. Maybe they've gotten a little bit weaker. Maybe there are fewer of them. Maybe some of them are kind of disappearing and we're not really sure where they've gone. So especially among some of the leading classes, there's been maybe some starts of inbreeding happening, which we all know how that goes for humans. Not sure how it goes for fae, but I assume it's really bad. So maybe in an attempt to break that cycle and understand that that is not the answer, they've started to try and get over their nonsense and put together this, high fae male and uncommonly pretty goblin female in an attempt to see if maybe getting over themselves allows them to breed more or better. I'd like to say that maybe her parents' coupling isn't the first time that, there's been interbreeding between the fae species, but maybe it's the first in a long time that people are aware of. Maybe it's the first that people are really paying attention to. So there's a lot of pressure on our princess here to see, one, if she is accepted, two, if she's able to develop magic and be as powerful as either of her parents, and three, if she is able to produce a future heir or children at all, because the interbreeding of, various types of fae wouldn't matter if they're unable to breed children who can breed, right? That defeats the whole purpose. Maybe that's why the mortal realms and the magic realms were split, is because they thought that... So, okay, let me backtrack a little bit. So the painting that I did before this one, we touched on the magic realm and the mortal realm had been separated, and some lingering magical effects had been left in the mortal realm. And this is the magic realm. There were a few mortals that were trapped, but they've figured out their own way to survive and use magic. But maybe that's why the separation happened, because it was really abrupt, which is how people got left on in both realities, both the mortal, non-magic, and magic realities. So maybe that happened specifically because somebody among the fae or the magic folk decided or thought that humans, the mortal realm, were interfering with magic too much, and that's why they were unable to breed. That's why they were struggling. Maybe they thought some sort of separation from magic and mortal populations would change the pressure, because the way humans breed means that they were just taking over the world, and so separating them and making them not a problem for the magic folk gave them time to kind of try and figure things out. So maybe that's what was happening. Maybe they were trying to figure out what was going on, why they weren't able to keep up, and why they were disappearing, and that was the point of the separation. So yeah, so she's kind of an experiment. I think at this point in her story, there has been some notice that there are cracks between the two realities, right? It's her magic world and the mortal realm are kind of starting to bleed back together in places. So maybe there's an additional pressure or a push to figure this problem out. What is the larger problem? They're dying out. They're unable to have more children. They're not having as many children. Why are they dying out? Because obviously it wasn't the mortals. If they separated like the mortal realm and the magic realms, and they're not supposed to be separate, they're supposed to be together. If they separated them and it did not solve their problem, despite being completely separate from the mortal realm for however millennia they were separated for, it didn't solve their problem. In fact, their problem continued to get worse. There are cracks forming, and so the two worlds are going to explode back into each other, right? Now, they're going to allow this to happen because they still haven't solved the problem, and at this point, they don't know what to do. So they're going to go back to the way reality was supposed to be, where the two realms mix, and see if they can start from scratch and solve the problem. The princess is very excited about this. I think that she's not necessarily good. I don't want you guys to be under the impression that she's good and wholesome. She's gray. She's very about herself. She's about, how can I help the Fae so that they accept me, which is absolutely a valid thing for her to want, right? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to stop with her story and some of the world information here. As always, if you like my videos, please like. If you are interested in seeing more of them, please subscribe. I will try and get more into her story and what's going on in our magic world. We write our own lore here. So yeah, I'd love to see you here again. And, oh, check here. This is the previous video where I touched on the magic system just a little bit with this tree guy that got left in the mortal realm. And I hope to see you next time. Bye, guys.